It's full speed ahead over that proverbial cliff, ladies and gentlemen. Better watch out, Americans. By the way, this is Bruce the Boss Brooks. If you want to support independent content like this, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, comment on this video, like this video, share this video. Let's roll. So if you haven't heard, peeps, it looks like Congress has finally agreed on a massive spending bill of $2.3 trillion in order to keep the country rolling and avoid a government shutdown. And within that massive $2.3 trillion spending package, it includes a $900 billion stimulus relief for the coronavirus and pandemic shutdowns, which is going to be pretty much the second stimulus package related to the shutdown sent directly to the American people. And to break it down, and it's very similar, if not identical, to the package that was put forth by the Republican Senate and Mitch McConnell back in, what was it, September, October, if I'm not mistaken, because the price tag is almost exactly the exact amount. But it breaks down like this, with $600 going to each individual qualified American, $300 a month in federal unemployment benefits on top of what you may already be getting from your respective state, $25 billion being directed for rental assurance for those, or rental assistance for those who have either been laid off and not getting a steady stream of income as a result of shutdowns and the pandemic, in addition to those who are facing eviction as a result of their new financial woes caused by the shutdowns, lockdowns, and pandemic. And then you have another $15 billion going to the theaters, Save the Arts program, if I'm not mistaken, championed by George Clooney. So good job there. And was it 15? Another $10 billion being directed for childcare. So that may sound all well and good. And that's actually chump change and or scraps compared to the damage and loss of revenue and income caused by the government, not the pandemic, but I repeat, the government caused the lockdowns. I do believe that we could have kept pretty much all of these jobs open, businesses open, jobs saved without shutting down, considering the effect or differential effect it has on people in the population. But I digress. What's really troublesome is the fact that we just approved the $2.3 trillion stimulus package in the backdrop of what appears to be a recession, a lockdown, and overwhelming printing of the money. So I don't know if anyone's really been paying attention, but a report just came out maybe a week or so ago that stated that 35% of all US dollars has been printed in just the last 10 months, from February of 2020 to now, December 2020. 35%. And that's going all the way back to, I believe, 1789 when this country was first founded. So you're talking about a 231 year span. In that 231 years, 35% of all of the dollars printed have been printed just within the last 10 months. And if I'm not mistaken, there was an article back in October that stated at that time, it was at 23% of all US dollars ever printed within the country's history was printed within the last 8 months of 2020 up to that point. And in just 2 short months' time, we just increased it by another 12%. That's scary. And that's why I talk about us heading towards that proverbial cliff at full speed ahead, because you have Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi stating that this is only going to be the beginning of many additional government spending packages once President-elect Joe Biden gets into office come January the 20th. And again, that may sound good that they're throwing the American people and the small businesses with the payroll protection program. They're getting some monies unreleased, or it hasn't been confirmed how much money is going towards that. But at the end of the day, small businesses by the hundreds and thousands, if not, have been shuttered, destroyed, and their doors are closed permanently. Monies that have been going to businesses have been mostly to large corporations, big businesses that really didn't need it as much. But truth of the matter is, a lot of these cities and or states are going into stricter lockdowns than the previous started the previous pandemic season back in March, April, May. Businesses are being closed. That means revenue, taxable revenue, is not coming in. As I speak right now, the federal government's only taking in about $3.4 trillion in federal taxes, federal tax revenue. All the while, spending is at 6.7 trillion. We are spending at a ridiculous rate and not getting any money in because businesses are closed. You can't tax what's not being produced. And it reminds me dangerously of what happened in Germany after World War One. So they have a currency, or had a currency called Papiermark, which by the end of World War One, they were producing 6 times as much as they did 5 years earlier in 1913. By 1918, they were producing and just printing out money like crazy in order to recover from their destroyed and crippled economy and infrastructure, as well as all of the reparations owed to the other countries and their individuals as a result of their loss in World War One and the treaties made, that they're just printing money and nothing's backing it up. And at the start of 1818, the Papiermark, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, 8.9 Papiermarks equated to $1. Fast forward 5 years later to 1923, after just printing out all of this money that's not being backed up by anything, nothing new is really being produced to pay for this. By 1923, the US dollar, $1 was equivalent to 4 trillion Papiermarks. There is such a thing called hyperinflation. Countries do get to that all the time. And that's not just a history lesson from 100 years ago, or should I say like 97, 98 years ago. You even have recently in Greece, where they reached a point where they just spent so much and nothing was coming in. They could not pay off their debt. Assets were frozen. The country financially collapsed just a few short years ago. And we're heading to that same point. We're already seeing massive inflation as prices are greatly increasing. And so what's going to happen when the US government is just printing all of this cash, all of this money, and nothing's backing it up? They're not producing anything. They're not making anything. They're not bringing any revenue in to back it up. We're just increasing this debt. Prices are skyrocketing. And you have all of this money just readily available. It's not going to be worth as much. So we really need to watch out, Americans, of what's really happening, regarding this record spending that's happening, this inflation and printing of the money, all the while nothing's being created. And we really have to rethink these lockdowns as a result as well. You don't want the cure to be worse than the virus itself, as they say. Because yes, if you're talking about, well, we have to stop the spread. It's stopping the spread of a virus where the overwhelming majority of individuals under the age of 20 are asymptomatic. They don't even know they have it. Majority of people under the age of 35 are either majority asymptomatic, as much as 85% asymptomatic, with the remaining 15% with their symptoms being so mild they don't even know that they're really sick, or they confuse it with a common cold, allergies, or at worst, maybe a loss of smell, and be like, oh snap, I think I have COVID, but otherwise I feel fine. And the majority of individuals under the age of 50 are either asymptomatic, as high as 75, 80%, with the other 20 to 15%, again, also with symptoms being very mild, and they still don't represent much of the hospitalizations, because hospitalization rate in this country is flatline zero practically for anyone under the age of 17. Anyone between the ages of 18 and 49, you're still talking about single digit, below maybe 5, rate on average of hospitalization in this country. It doesn't skyrocket to the double digits until you get to people over the age of 50 to 64, and then it even rises even more if you see the graph for those 65 and older. Do you really need a lockdown for something that's not going to overwhelm the healthcare system for most people under the age of 50, that most people don't even realize they have it? Is it really worth it? Is it worth the increase in unemployment, people being forced into poverty? You have the UN already talking about how this affects people worldwide. Estimated about as many as 270 million people will die of starvation as a result of these lockdowns. Because if you're not producing anything, you're shutting down these factories, shutting down the production of food and products. People in these third world countries are not going to have much of anything to eat, and they're going to starve to death. And a lot of people aren't thinking about that. Is it really worth the increase in poverty, death from starvation, increase in crime because of increased poverty and people who are getting desperate, increased sexual assaults, increased domestic abuse and domestic violence? People who were used to depending on public food assistance, or I should say free food in the public school sector, are now no longer getting that food at school, so they'll be starving at home or fighting for crumbs. We need to hold these politicians accountable. I don't know whatever happened to the libertarians and the Tea Party Republicans. I don't know what happened to the Tea Party Republicans when it came to fiscal responsibility. A lot of talk campaigning and pushing for these various politicians to run for office in 2012, 2014, and then 2016 presidential election. But then when push come to shove, these politicians that were elected by the Tea Party, elected by these libertarians, not enough are raising the red flag on the massive spending that's going on, all the while little to no income coming in. And so we really need to hold these politicians foot to the fire, hold them accountable to the record spending that's going on, as well as talk about revisiting these lockdowns that aren't really doing much good either. So that's my video. I want to know what you think. Let me know what you think in the comments section. If you agree with some of my concerns or comments, don't forget to like this video, share this video, and please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're not yet subscribed. This is Bruce the Boss Brooks, and I'm out. Peace.